I'd have people who wrote books on my show. We'd be talking about, palm reading. We'd be talking about all this stuff. And I didn't have a huge audience. And then when I started talking about UFOs and Bigfoot and things like that, I ended up to around 170-some thousand downloads and, live listeners on the show. So it made a big change really fast.
That's terrific. Very, very interesting.
Well, it makes me happy if I made money on it, though.
At least the Social Security is still coming in, right?
Yeah, for a while. So what else is going on? I mean, last time we were talking about, the Earth wobble and all this stuff. Have you heard anything more? What's going on? The tilt and all that stuff?
I don't. I really don't have any updates since we talked about that. I guess one of the updates, when we've talked about Bigfoot a little bit, we have a new video that's listed. You can still find it on the homepage. And let's see if I can get the title for you. It's simply called Video Interview About Bigfoot Encounter. It's still listed under What's New on this website. It's worth listening to. We've written articles in the past about a very active place that we call Valley of the Bigfoot, which is not too far from Cashers, North Carolina. And it's one of those stories where we had photos and hair samples and it's a very, very involved story with, Bigfoot invading somebody's house and things of that nature. And we went back another time, and we took a woman with us who is kind of, I don't know what she wants to call herself. She's like a spiritual intuitive. And we took her out there to see what she could pick up. And normally I try to stay with my 2 feet on the ground and present the information on the website as if I was still an editor for a newspaper. So I try not to be the story. I try not to, get involved with the story. But she told her tale, and so she kind of exposed what I got to see myself. And what had happened was that when we were pulling up to this house, now I'd been there before, but this time we took this woman with us. We wanted to find out more why the Bigfoot had started being so destructive. The people who own the property in the Valley of the Bigfoot have known they've been there for a long time. There'd never been a problem. And then suddenly the Bigfoot were invading the house. There were muddy footprints and handprints all over the place. They were very destructive in some parts of the house. They drew on the walls. They just did tons of things. And this, we found out later that, I'm getting the feedback again, sorry, that they had used a jackhammer to repair a dam that was holding back the pond. And they went through bedrock, and after the fact, we found out that they had flooded the cave beneath the pond where the Bigfoot lived. And the Bigfoot were pissed. And that's why they started being so destructive of the people's property. Well, this woman came and she went down by the pond where the destruction had been, and she started telepathically communicating, and they explained to her what had happened. And basically she became the negotiator for a peace treaty. And we had done a story about how they had left a gift at the front door after, destroying so many things. And they wanted to essentially make peace. So they quit being destructive after this lady was there. Now, the paranormal part that I experienced, and I've never experienced anything like it, was when we pulled up to the house. There were 2 of us in the front of the car, and we could see there was this dog. Now, it didn't quite look like a regular dog. It looked kind of like a Pharaoh's hound, and it was to our left, and then it walked across in front of us, and then in just a couple of bounds, it became transparent, and then, poof, it disappeared. People who have, Kawani, the one who's really a Bigfoot expert who's studied them for years and years, said that that's like a guardian of the Bigfoot territory. And we actually saw it. And to see something go from solid to transparent to poof, it's gone, is really kind of a unique experience. And in this video, and I'll repeat the title again, it's just simply Video Interview About Bigfoot Encounter. It's worth listening to because the woman who made the contact with the Bigfoot telepathically tells it so much better than I am trying to tell it now.
Well, I do believe in Bigfoot because I had an experience with a friend of mine who was a medical doctor. But, recently I had Ron Moorhead on the show. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I'm not a great deal. I think I've read it in one of his books.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually sent me a whole bunch of audio clips of, Bigfoot and stuff like that. And it's so interesting because they would be out in this one camp, out nowhere where there was no fire roads, no nothing. They had a horseback, into it, and pack into it. And in the middle of the night, they would get all these weird sounds like, like they're trying to talk to each other in their own language. And then they would also like imitate sounds like he would hear like a car door slam.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and weird sounds that, it's no way a car could have been there. But it was a lot of weird different things, that he recorded, for many years of going up there and recording them. And I don't know. I still have my mixed feelings because my experience with them, I have had so many people come on my show and they said, oh, again, I'm going to use the thing that I said before. They're warm, they're fuzzy, they won't hurt man, that they talk to you through orbs and all this stuff. And I go, boy, that's sure not the experience I had. But again, too, I just don't think, you're going to, some of these people who claim that they see Bigfoot, they're right off of a campground, where, hundreds of people go camping a week and they walk out a trail, 20 minutes away, and all of a sudden they see Bigfoot. I don't know. I ran in my experience of a Bigfoot up in the Canadian Rockies, where it was an old Japanese internment camp from World War II. That we had to go find a back road. It drove into it, and then we had to walk in through the woods 2 miles. So, it was not an area where a lot of people would go. So, I don't know.
Well, I think generally, I don't think you can lump them together. I think that the Bigfoot in, like Florida, where they're called swamp apes and they're smaller, and the Bigfoot that we have here in like the Appalachians, and then the Bigfoot out west, I think they're all quite different. The ones that seem to be the most evolved are some of the ones in the west, more than any place else. The ones that are least evolved seem to be like in Florida or in the swampland. So they're not all the same. From everything that I've pieced together up to this point, I do not see the Bigfoot being hurting people. They're losing their territory. They will be very protective of their territory. They will make sounds to scare people off. They're known for throwing stones. They don't hit the people, but they throw the stones to scare the people. Very seldom do I hear anything where they've actually gotten violent with people. There's an old story out in your part of the world about the hunters. I think it was back in the 1920s. And one of the hunters shot one of the Bigfoot. Well, needless to say, that really pissed off the rest of the Bigfoot. And the hunters were terrified. And but I can understand it. If somebody shot your family, you'd be pissed too.
Yeah, and in my case, if it wanted to kill me and my friend, it would have done it. But it screamed at us and it chased us. And even, I don't know if it was the same one or its mate, but when we were getting in the car, one was like 25, 30 feet away from us, and, screaming at us. So, if it wanted to kill us, it would have done it.
Right, and I think we have to remember that this usually happens when we're invading their territory. It's like cornering a dog. if you're going to corner them and they have no place else to run and you're invading their space, they're going to try to, get rid of you. Your listeners might want to make a note. We do have something on the website called Archaic Japanese in the Bigfoot Language, and the man that we quote is Scott Nelson, and he was a cryptologist and linguist with the U.S. Navy for over 30 years. So he's the basis of a lot of the article. But at the end of the article, you can just click and hear 2 brief audio recordings of Bigfoot speaking, and some of it sounds clearly like Samurai Warrior from Japan.
Yeah, Ron Moorhead actually sent me a clip that he recorded that. He called it some Samurai also. And it did. It really.
Maybe he's the originator of that recording. It could be.
Yeah, it's possible because he sent me over probably about 12, 13 clips, and one of them or 2 of them was about that. And I mean, when I listened to it, I had people wanting me to play it over and over again. And it just was intriguing, some of the noises they were making, and it definitely wasn't coyotes or other type of creatures out in the woods. I tell you this, I don't have the courage to go out and, and put a tent out, 20 miles away or 15 miles away from any road to record Bigfoot, just no way.
That does take courage. It really does. But I'm going to repeat that title again because you can type it into our search bar. It's Archaic Japanese in Bigfoot Language, and it's really quite fascinating to listen to it. And also you can read Scott Nelson's breakdown of the information, because there's other languages that do show up in some of the Bigfoot chatter.
Oh, wow. So what's going on with your website? Anything new and fascinating coming up, or, anything exciting?
We're working on some projects that would be visual, but they're not at the point where I can talk about them yet. I can just tell you that we're working on them. One of the projects is based on, we did a story a number of years ago. It was an interview about 2 10-year-old kids, and this is a true story, getting a hold of a piece of metal from Roswell. And the woman who told the story originally had kept it to herself out of fear. She had been so intimidated as a child not to talk about it, that she hadn't told anybody, even her husband and her son. And she kind of indicated something about it one day, and I kind of would periodically bring it up. And it took a couple years for her to finally, get to sharing her story. And the story has inspired us to work on a visual thing to go with it. But that's really all I can say. If you go to our website and just click on the YouTube button and scroll down, the story is called Exclusive Interview, 2 Kids Secretly Tested Roswell UFO Material. And if you listen to it carefully, you can actually hear a little bit of emotion in the woman's voice. It's, I think, 2 different points within the interview. And to me, it's just amazing that somebody could keep this kind of story bottled up inside them for 69 years. Or she was 10 years old, so it would have been like 59 years. And I don't know if I could keep something that tight inside me for that length of time.
I don't know. I had a hard time, keeping my mouth shut from the, 2002 with our experience with the Bigfoot. It took to doing the show and having Ed Romans on and talking about Bigfoot before it all started coming out. Mm-hmm. But, people hold things back because, one, they're scared, number one, because, on Roswell, they went around and, all the, maybe not to the kids, but to the parents and all that stuff, they pretty much scared them off, pretty much.
Well, when one of the fathers of these 2, it was a boy and a girl, and they were just good friends at school, and the boy found this in his father's private study at home, and it would do magical things, and he shared it with his best friend, who we call Jill, and it's just really, really interesting. And the father of the boy had quite a bit of rank to him.